Did you know that our planet is shaped like a sphere? I mean, it's not a cube or a pyramid or anything else. It's a sphere, and there's a reason for that. Can you name that reason? Still thinking, well, here's a hint. It's all around you right now. In fact, if you were to leave your house right now and walk toward any direction, odds are pretty good you would end up knee-deep in it within about a mile or so. Talking, of course, about the sea. The ocean, because it covers more than 70% of Earth's surface, is the reason why our planet is a sphere. But the sea does a lot more than just define our planet's shape. It also drives our climate and weather patterns, produces most of the oxygen we breathe, and is the reason why we have monsoons, currents, and even some types of storms. The sea is also a major part of the water cycle and provides us with food, energy, and other resources. So let's dive into how the sea shapes our planet. Hey there, welcome to this channel. The sea does a lot for us, but one of the biggest things it does is produce oxygen. Did you know that phytoplankton, which are tiny plants that live in the sea, produce about half of the oxygen we breathe? That's because when they perform photosynthesis, they release oxygen as a byproduct. And since there's so much sea on our planet, that means there's a lot of phytoplankton, which in turn means that our oceans produce a lot of oxygen. But speaking of the sea's role in producing things, you can also thank it for giving us water, or more specifically, for giving us rain and snow. That's because the sea plays a big role in the water cycle. When the sun shines on the sea, it evaporates some of the water, turning it into vapor. That vapor then forms clouds, which can then get so heavy that the water falls back down to Earth in the form of precipitation. And depending on how cold it is, that precipitation can be in the form of rain, snow, sleet, or hail. This process is called the water cycle, and it wouldn't be possible without the sea. Now, the sea doesn't just give us water, it also gives us a lot of weather. The currents in the sea help to regulate our planet's climate. For example, the Gulf Stream is a current that carries heat from the Gulf of Mexico up to Europe, which helps to keep the continent warmer than it would be otherwise. Without this current, Europe would likely be a lot colder and have a very different climate. Speaking of currents, you can also thank the sea for some of the storms we experience. Storms get their energy from temperature and pressure differences in the air. And one of the biggest temperature differences on our planet is between the land and the sea. As you probably know, land heats up and cools down much faster than the sea does. So when a storm comes along and starts to form, the sea provides the energy it needs to get started. Once a storm starts to form over the sea, it sucks up warm water vapor from the surface. As the vapor rises, it cools, which forms clouds and also causes even more vapor to get sucked up. And it gets stronger and stronger until, bam, hurricane. The sea is also responsible for some other weather phenomena, like monsoons. Monsoons are seasonal wind patterns that cause heavy rainfall in certain regions. They happen because of the temperature difference between land and sea. During the summer, the land heats up much faster than the sea does. So the air over the land rises, and cooler air from the sea rushes in to take its place. When the air reaches the land, it cools, which forms clouds and causes even more rain. Now, we haven't even mentioned what the sea does for us. Not only is it home to a lot of the oxygen we need to breathe, but it also gives us food, energy, and other resources. For example, the sea is a major source of protein for billions of people. What's really strange is that despite these extreme conditions, life still exists down there. In the Mariana Trench, you can find bizarre fish with huge mouths and sharp teeth like the anglerfish, which has a glowing lure that it uses to attract prey in the darkness. It dangles this lure in front of small fish, and when they get close enough, anglerfish gobble them up. But the anglerfish isn't the only strange creature lurking in the deep sea. There are also giant squid with massive eyes that can spot prey from far away. They have such big eyes because light is so scarce down there that even the tiniest glimmer can help them find something to eat. But the deep sea is mostly filled with animals that can produce their own light. Bioluminescence, as it's called, isn't just pretty to look at. It's actually a useful tool for survival. Some animals use it to attract mates, while others use it to lure prey or to confuse predators. For example, the hatchetfish has a light under its chin that helps it blend in with the faint light filtering down from above. This way, predators can't see their silhouettes, and they're less likely to be eaten. But the deep sea isn't just full of weird animals, it's also full of weird rocks. Hydrothermal vents, as they're called, are areas where superheated water comes out of the ocean floor. They're usually found near volcanically active areas, and they can reach temperatures of over 400 degrees Celsius. That's hot enough to kill most living things. Yet some animals have figured out how to not only survive in these extreme conditions, but thrive. For example, giant tube worms have been found growing around hydrothermal vents. These worms don't need sunlight or even mouths to survive. Instead, they have bacteria living inside of them that convert chemicals from the vent into energy. Exploring this extreme environment hasn't been easy, but thanks to technological advances, we've been able to learn more about the deep sea than ever before. The first manned submarine was invented in the 16th century, but it wasn't until the 20th century that we started exploring the deep sea. Today, scientists use a variety of submersibles to explore the deep sea, including remotely operated vehicles or ROVs. An ROV is basically a robot that can be controlled from the surface. It has cameras and lights to help scientists see in the darkness and robotic arms that can collect samples. One of the most famous ROVs is named Deep Sea Challenger. It was used by filmmaker James Cameron to make a record-breaking dive to the bottom of the Mariana Trench in 2012. So why do we even bother exploring the deep sea? It might seem like a vast, dark, and dangerous place, but it's also incredibly beautiful and mysterious. We've only scratched the surface of what's down there, and who knows what other strange and wonderful things we might find. Maybe we'll discover new species of animals, or even new forms of life. Or maybe we'll find evidence of ancient shipwrecks or lost cities. So much in the oceans. In the water, there is little oxygen. It's hard to get food and sunlight can't penetrate very far, making photosynthesis impossible for most organisms. But over the past 600 million years, some animals have overcome these challenges and have thrived in the water. So let's take a moment to learn about some of the animals that call the ocean home. Welcome to life on the ocean's edge. So there are obviously a lot of different kinds of sea animals. There are fish, like salmon and clownfish, mammals like dolphins and whales, reptiles like turtles, and even invertebrates like jellyfish. In fact, scientists estimate that there could be as many as 200,000 different kinds of sea animals. To put that number in perspective, there are only about 8,700 known kinds of land vertebrates. And just like on land, sea animals tend to live in groups. You've probably heard of schools of fish, but did you know that some animals like crabs and lobsters tend to live in what's called a guild? A whale pod might contain hundreds of individuals, and a crab guild can contain dozens. Jellyfish, on the other hand, tend to congregate in what are known as blooms, which can sometimes cover the surface of the ocean like a floating purple carpet. One of the reasons sea animals can live in groups is because they need each other to survive. Take coral reefs, for example. While they may look like rocks, corals are actually made up of tiny animals called polyps. These polyps live together in massive colonies, connected to each other by a structure made of calcium carbonate. The polyps capture plankton and other small floating organisms with their stinging cells and use them as food. In fact, coral reefs are kind of like underwater cities, teeming with thousands of different kinds of sea animals. Not only do these sea animals have to compete with each other for food, but they also have to contend with predators. Fish like sharks and whales eat smaller sea animals, and even sea turtles are occasionally eaten by large sharks. In fact, there's a symbiotic relationship between whale sharks and dolphins. The dolphins will eat the smaller fish around a whale shark, cleaning it of parasites, and the whale shark provides the dolphins with protection from predators like tiger sharks. Humans are also a threat to sea animals. We often kill whales and dolphins by getting our fishing nets and lines tangled around their bodies. And in some places, people hunt sea turtles for their shells and meat. Plastic waste dumped into the ocean also poses a serious threat to sea animals. Sea turtles often mistake plastic bags floating on the water for jellyfish, a favorite food of theirs. And when they eat the bags, it blocks their digestive system and kills them. But despite all these threats, there are still plenty of sea animals living in the ocean today. And it's thanks to their ability to adapt to constantly changing conditions. Take the mimic octopus, for example. This amazing creature can change its shape, color, and texture to blend in with its surroundings. This helps it to ambush its prey and also to avoid being eaten itself. Another example is the blue whale, the largest animal on planet Earth. Blue whales can dive to depths of 100 meters or more in search of krill, a small crustacean that lives in the ocean. By diving deep, they can avoid being seen by predators and also find plenty of food. There are also animals like the hagfish, which is a type of eel-like fish that lives on the seafloor. Hagfish have no bones and can squeeze through tiny openings in the seafloor in search of food. They also have special teeth that allow them to slice through flesh with ease. As you can see, there are all kinds of amazing animals living in the ocean. From the smallest jellyfish to the largest whale, each animal has unique adaptations that help it survive in this challenging environment. And while some species are threatened by human activities, there are still plenty of animals thriving in the ocean today. People settled near it, traded over it, and fought over it. It inspired some of our greatest myths and legends and took some of our greatest heroes. Here's the history of human and the sea. Before we had airplanes or even cars, people traveled by boat across the seas to get to new lands and trade with other cultures. Some of the most important ancient sea trade routes included those along the coasts of Africa, the Arabian Sea, and the South China Sea. In the Mediterranean, Greek and Roman ships would travel to far-off lands carrying goods like olive oil, wine, and silk. The Vikings were also famous for their seafaring adventures. They traveled all over Europe and even North America long before Columbus. But that brings us to one of the most famous explorers in history, Christopher Columbus. He was an Italian explorer who was the first European to reach the Americas in 1492. He sailed west across the Atlantic Ocean in search of a faster route to Asia, but instead landed in the Caribbean. His voyages and the voyages of other explorers who followed him are considered a pivotal moment in history. They opened up the Americas to colonization by Europeans and began the process of globalization that continues today. Another famous explorer was Zhang He, a Chinese admiral who led 7 voyages to Southeast Asia, India and Africa between 1405 and 1433. His fleet was massive, consisting of hundreds of ships and thousands of sailors. They were the largest ships ever built up to that point in time and traveled over 40,000 miles. These voyages were part of a larger effort by the Chinese government to expand its influence and trade networks. They brought back to China many exotic animals and plants from other lands. Another famous explorer was Ferdinand Magellan, a Portuguese explorer who led the first circumnavigation of the globe between 1519 and 1522. His crew sailed over 69,000 miles and crossed the Pacific Ocean for the first time. This voyage proved that the Earth was round and that there was no land to the west of the Americas. But it wasn't just explorers who braved the seas. Many famous battles were fought on the ocean, such as the Battle of Actium in 323 BC, where Octavian defeated Mark Antony and Cleopatra, the Battle of Lepanto in 1571, where the Spanish and Portuguese fleets defeated the Ottoman Empire, and the Battle of Cape St. Vincent in 1797, where the British Navy defeated the Spanish and Portuguese fleets. These battles were important because they helped to shape the balance of power in the world and determine the fate of empires. The sea has also been a source of many famous myths and legends. One of the most famous is the legend of Atlantis, a mythical island civilization that was said to have existed in the Atlantic Ocean. According to Plato, Atlantis was a place of wisdom and enlightenment, but it was destroyed by a natural disaster. Other legends include the story of Sinbad the Sailor, who went on 7 voyages and encountered mythical creatures from the Old Man in the sea to the Kraken, a giant squid monster that could wrap its tentacles around a ship and drag it down to the bottom of the ocean. Mermaids have also captured the imagination of people for centuries. These mythical creatures are said to be half human and half fish and live in the sea. Today, the ocean is still an important part of our lives. Modern ships carry goods and resources all over the world and help to connect different countries and cultures. The invention of new technologies like GPS and satellite communication has made it easier and safer to travel on the sea. But despite these advances, the ocean is still a dangerous place. Storms, shipwrecks, and piracy are just some of the dangers that sailors face today. One of the busiest stretches of water in the world is the South China Sea. Every year, hundreds of trillions of dollars worth of goods are shipped through this area. That's why it's so important to keep the sea routes in the South China Sea open and safe. Unfortunately, there are people who want to disrupt the peace in the South China Sea. In recent years, there's been a lot of tension in the South China Sea. Many countries have been fighting over the islands and waters. This has led to a lot of worry about what might happen next. Some people are concerned that there could be a war in the South China Sea. They say that if something happens to the cargo ships, it could cause big problems for the world economy. That's why it's so important for everyone to work together to keep the peace in the South China Sea. We all need to make sure that the ships can travel safely so that we can keep trading with each other. You might think of the ocean as an endless blue expanse, something so vast that it'll be around for a very long time, in which we not doing that much harm to. But our oceans are in peril. They're drowning in plastic, warming at an alarming rate, being fished to the point of collapse, and becoming more acidic as they absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. And it is up to us to reverse this trend before it's too late. Hi, I'm here to talk about what will happen to our oceans in the future. First, let's look at some scary statistics. Every year, humans produce 275 million metric tons of plastic waste. Some of that gets recycled, but most of it eventually finds its way into the ocean, where it kills an estimated 1 million seabirds and over 100,000 marine mammals every year. Much of the plastic waste in the ocean comes from discarded fishing nets, which can smother coral reefs or become tangled around whales. Meanwhile, the ocean covers more than 70% of Earth's surface and absorbs 90% of the planet's excess heat. As a result, average sea levels are now rising by about 3.6 millimeters per year. And ocean temperatures are rising too, leading to coral bleaching and less snow and ice in the Arctic. Some fish species have already been pushed to the point of extinction, and many more are in danger. For example, overfishing has reduced the population of Atlantic cod off the coast of New England to just a tenth of their former abundance. But it's not all doom and gloom. There are organizations out there taking steps to protect our oceans. For example, in July 2021, a group of engineers set a new world record by removing 30 million pounds of plastic from the water in a river cleanup project in Indonesia. This was the largest ocean plastic cleanup operation ever carried out. So what does this all mean for the future of our oceans? Well, it depends on what we do today. Let's discuss 3 steps we can take to reduce our plastic consumption. The less plastic we use, the less will end up in landfills and incinerators. And choose eco-friendly products. Look for items made from recycled materials or which are themselves recyclable. Also avoid single-use plastics like straws and cutlery. Instead, use reusable bags, bottles, and coffee cups. If we all do our part to reduce plastic consumption, then less of it will end up polluting our oceans. 2, we can protect ocean habitats. Coral reefs are some of the most diverse ecosystems on Earth, but they're under threat from climate change, pollution, and overfishing. We can help by supporting organizations that are working to restore damaged coral reefs and create marine protected areas where fishing is banned. One group of engineers has developed machines that can quickly grow new coral reefs in shallow coastal waters. These artificial reefs can then be colonized by corals, providing new habitat for fish and other marine life. Another organization works with local fishermen to create no-take zones in areas where fish populations have collapsed. By giving fish populations time to recover, these zones can help restore entire ocean ecosystems. And finally, we can make changes in our own lives. If you live near the ocean, you can get involved in beach cleanups or work with a local organization to monitor the health of the ocean. If you don't live near the ocean, you can still make a difference by reducing your carbon footprint. The less carbon dioxide we emit, the slower sea levels will rise, and the less damage there will be to fragile ocean ecosystems. You can also support organizations working to protect the ocean by donating money or volunteering your time. In the future, our oceans will continue to face challenges, but with our help, they can thrive once again. So what will the future of our oceans look like? That's up to us. Will we continue down the same path that we on today, or will we take action to protect the ocean? It's up to all of us to decide what kind of future we want for ourselves and for the planet. So let us hope that we make the right choices so that our oceans can continue to thrive for generations to come. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please like and share it with your friends. And if you want to learn more about the ocean, check out the links below.